Hey guys, welcome to a special Sunday night edition. So right now I just want to do one specific trade that people were messaging me about. So I'm not going to do the full instruments for the week, especially because I dropped a video yesterday about leveraged ETFs and everything you need to know about them. So you can click the link somewhere on your screen right now. Before I start, quick disclaimer time. This is not financial advice. This is for educational purposes only. This is how I'm thinking about the market, how I'm trading my own book, and how I'm managing risk. All right, so let's jump into the specific trade. So everybody was asking me about Bitcoin lately because it looks like it keeps dumping. And, you know, since October, I believe that's when that sell-off started, it really has come down quite a bit. It's been an epic pullback. And in fact, if we go from the highs here all the way down to the lows, if I can grab them there, that's a 50% decline on the futures, 53.52%. So quite a bit. And that is a point at which I am looking for many things to happen. And if they are happening, I'll be very interested, regardless of what you think about Bitcoin in general. If we're just talking about trading it from the technicals, there's a few things that I like that are happening. And there are some fundamental reasons. There was a lot of legislation this year that a lot of people thought Bitcoin should be doing better at this point. But that's exactly the point where Wall Street starts to control the narrative for sure. And now that it's, now that there are ETFs for this, there's a lot of hedging that's going on. And I think the entire system is just starting to get used to derivatives and being traded in a different fashion than has been the case for Bitcoin historically. But regardless of what you think about all of that, because we're not here to assess that necessarily, we can talk more about macro and political and currency and all of that stuff. So let me know in the comments if you'd like more of that. But because I was getting messages, I wanted to cover this. So let's go to the daily and I'll show you what I'm looking at here that's really interesting. Besides the fact that we've gone down 53%, I started to see some divergences, bullish divergences on the RSI. So right here, price, let me zoom in just a little bit better and I'll show you a few things here. And because when I see these, then I start to think about my Wyckoff analysis. And we've talked about that in some other videos, but this is a great place to start looking to see what's happening when you're having these divergences. And as you can see, I have a position going on right now in the micro Bitcoin futures because I started to see nice volume come in on Sunday night. And Sunday night volume is not unusual for Bitcoin, but I liked how it was looking. And this could be a few short trades for me. I need some confirmations, but it did make me want to talk about it, especially because people were asking. So the first thing to notice is that on February, we made a pretty significant low here. And if you know anything about the Wyckoff analysis, once you see these epic flushes like that, you do expect oftentimes a little bit of a recovery at some point. And wasn't an actual V-shaped situation. And we started to look like accumulation around here with some what you would assume is a false breakout because it came back down into the range. And we'll talk about that in a second. But why I think that is a point of interest on the chart is because you had these extreme oversold conditions, and now you're getting oversold again here, but less so, even though price is lower down. So we have a bullish divergence on the RSI here. Price is now making lower lows, but the RSI is making a higher low. It's hard to see there because they're still both oversold. So there's some other things I would like to see, but at the very least, I'm expecting we're going to come back into this trading range. And the great part about this is that at this point, I now have some defined risk. So again, for me, this isn't about I'm swinging for the fences and this is going to be the biggest trade of all time. What it is that I've identified a place here where there's asymmetric upside, and I really like the risk reward because we've fallen 50%. If we even recover 10%, this will be a great trade. And we're going to talk about the weekly 200 because we talk about that all the time. So there's a lot of stuff I really like about what's going on here. And if you don't want to look at it on the futures, IBIT is the instrument that I recommend because it's the most liquid ETF. And there's also a lot to talk about with how it's been behaving because I don't want to get into the macro there about all of that. Let me know if you want to. But the fact that Wall Street is now engaging in these, in crypto, and there's a lot of derivatives around it, the price action is different than it has ever been, even though people do think that cyclically we are where we should be with Bitcoin and there should have been this pullback. And some people think it happens till a certain date. And I don't want to get into all of that. All I want to do is trade the charts. And so because people were asking about it, and also let's look at it on the weekly here. You could see the price would have been a little bit different but it's still great. It's almost even stronger. So let's map this out because now the wick is a little bit lower. Even if that is a less of a slope, you can see now much clearer here that the oversold on the weekly, which is a great signal, is now diverging here. And the other thing is that we just hit the 200 SMA on the weekly, and you hear me talk about that all the time. So this is a trade I'm willing to take quite frequently. Now, it could not pan out well, but at least I know where my stop loss is going to be. So I'm good holding this for a while until I'm proven incorrect. And it's very possible this could just plummet down. But I like that a whole lot more than had I been taking some trades around here. And then also, if we look at it, like I said, from the Wyckoff standpoint, I would be probably assuming we're going to be range bound in here if we don't just accelerate and break out and start touching the 4-hour 200 SMA. But we may come back down where I would accumulate more because I'm okay with that stop loss going below the low at 59,270. So there's one more part of this trade I want to talk about because we have bullish conviction, or at least we got a bullish signal on the bullish RSI divergence on the daily. And we also got some really great ones on the weekly. We got bullish RSI divergence here. Plus we have something really great happening here that I love, where you have a candle on the weekly with a lot of selling pressure hitting the 200 SMA, and it hits it like a brick wall. And now we're starting to come back up. To me, that means that there was a lot of absorption there. Whether you want to call that accumulation as well or not, the selling pressure was absorbed and we did not go lower. And that's really interesting, especially given what I was pointing out about the RSI divergence. But sometimes I want to go down to a smaller time frame to understand the more localized price action. And this is where trend lines come in. People also use them obviously for higher time frames, but right now, because I have identified on the daily and the weekly that I've seen some bullish price action, I want to see what are the bear cases here. And one particular bear case that I'm seeing is on the 4-hour, which I use as a very strong signal for my entrances. Once I identify things on the 1 day or the 1 week, is this trend line right here, where from the lows up to, I guess it was on Friday, we had a trend line occurring that broke through. And now what's happening, often when you break through a trend like that, it might come back and retest it and starts acting as resistance. And you could see it is acting as resistance, but it's getting weaker and weaker. But essentially every time it comes back up to this trend line, there's selling pressure that comes in. And that's also the case here. But now we're hitting this. This is the 50 simple moving average on the 4-hour. I don't use it as quite a strong enough signal to trade off of. But what I want to point out here is, since we've already identified that we may be within a trading range here, from this high to this low end of the range, we might chop around in here. And it wouldn't be unexpected for me for this to fall after hitting this trend line that it's retracing after it had broken through it. So the reason I mention that is, one, because we need to look at both the bullish and bearish cases, especially if we're actively trading things. And again, not financial advice. When I say we, I mean one. But when I'm trading it, I like to have the bull and the bear case here. And the bearish case here is that because we lost this trend line, maybe we'll continue downward. But I am also looking for additional entrances because on a higher time frame, I have a bullish conviction. And so I've only started my position with one long contract here on the micros, but now I'm looking to get in long with some additional contracts as we sink down, as long as we don't go below 59,270, because that's where my stop loss is going to go, and it's going to invalidate this as a trading range and this as a spring. And I run a website called alphaharmonic.io. Just a little quick pitch to it. It's not really what the video is about, but the reason I mention it is because that's where I go to plan out my trades. I say, how much capital do I want to allocate here? Why am I bullish or bearish? What are the levels I'm looking for? And because I know how much capital I'm going to allocate, I say, well, I like these levels to come in for my second addition to my position. And if we come down here, my third addition, when we get down here, I'm less likely to want to put on more size. I'll let it run, and then I'll cut it here if I have to for a loss. And I've defined my loss beforehand. And then also on the upside, I will have some upside targets as to where I'm going. Right here, if I add more size, I probably will get out at 67.50 or 67.500, 67 8,500, if you will. But then there's some more upside to this, in my opinion. In fact, if we look at it on the daily, we could talk about some upside targets. The 8,000 is very compelling to me. And with these trend lines on the daily, we've already broken this big trend line. And so like I was saying on the smaller time frame, it's not uncommon to come back up and retest a trend line. So I would probably be looking to take some profits around that point anyway, because I imagine this would act as some type of localized resistance. However, we would be trapping in a ton of the short right here. So it does look like a really great place for me. And that's why I would want to be adding some size to this for me personally, because if we break up around here, I'll take first profits, but I may want a runner that has been funded by the profits I've made on the way up. But again, I plan those out in alphaharmonic.io. So just wanted to plug that. But I also wanted to point out that you can't just look at the daily and the weekly and say, I'm going to go long and that's it. Again, not financial advice. I wouldn't do that is what I mean. I would like to plan out the trade, know how much capital I want and what levels I'm willing to do what. Yeah, so just a super quick video. Please leave a comment and like and subscribe. Thank you so much to everybody who has subscribed. It really does mean the world to me. You know, I'm doing these on Sunday nights as I'm starting to plan out my week, and I just thought of all of you, and this might be a trade worth sharing with the community. So please like, subscribe, comment. I respond to everybody. Thanks so much, everybody. Stay safe out there, and happy investing.